Hello students, welcome to Vishnu Academy. Special guest for the day is none other than Anubhav Saransh sir. Paper 2 had become somewhat dicey with respect to the aspirants. What is your take with respect to paper 2, which specifically deals with India's approach towards international relations?
See, as far as any dynamic paper is concerned, you cannot predict questions.
Many students feel intimidated looking at the political theories, ancient Greek thought, Plato, Aristotle, Machiavelli and all. Many people couldn't understand the abstractness in that subject.
So I think analogies work very well when we can have some correlation with what happens in your family, let's say in a relationship or the family dynamics. And if we explain things through that process, it becomes easier and more fun as well, right?
What is making the difference between a person who is scoring around 295, 300 to a person who is scoring just 240, 250 or in fact 220?
270, 280 is not unachievable.
If a person wants to start preparation with no background with PSIR, what would be the ideal timeline and their approach with respect to PSIR as a subject? Hello students, welcome to Vishnu Academy. Today we are going to have a discussion about an interesting optional called PSIR. And our special guest for the day is none other than Anubhav Saransh sir, who has 10 plus years of experience in teaching PSIR. He is a renowned faculty across the country who had taught from Delhi to Kerala. Also, he had popularity in both the mediums, be it offline and online. So, without any delay, let us start our discussion with respect to PSIR Optional with our lovely Anubhav Saransh sir.
Hello, sir. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. It's an honor.
Me too, actually. And I feel it's a privilege to talk to you regarding PSIR, sir. Sir, first and foremost, across years, be it from 2013 post reforms of UPSC till latest mains, PSIR is considered as the most interesting, interdisciplinary and most popular choice of the aspirants. What made this?
I think PSIR is that Netflix of all the optionals, to be precise. And see, one reason that PSIR is so popular is because of its GS overlap. I mean, that's the primary reason. Because of this immense overlap with, say, GS paper 2, which is almost 90% of it, using the same theories and concepts in paper 1, 3, 4. So, of course, that's there. We can discuss it later on. Beyond that, people also perceive that once you get a hang of this optional and you are an expert here, it might also help you in your future endeavors in job. Once you clear the exam, it becomes easy to take on policy matters. Maybe if you get posted as an IFS officer, it helps you there as well. So there's this perception as well, not just during the exam, also post the exam, this optional might be of great help in the career. So I think that's one reason why this is so popular. And I think it outsmarts or maybe outperforms other optionals by almost 50%.
Yes.
The second best optionals.
Yeah.
There are 50% more students for this optional, at least those who take mains.
Yes.
So yes, these are two primary reasons. So maybe a lot of people might call it as interest, but interest can be generated when such benefits flow, right? So that's there.
Yes, so that amounts to this. Since in 2024, the first rank and second rank both are from PSIR as an optional. Yeah. Sir, and further, if you have to define about the essence of PSIR as an optional, whether it is accumulation of both governance and power, or is it just of ideas and values?
So I think a better way to define it would be ideas and power. So a summary of ideas as well as power is what PSIR is in a sense, to summarize, right? I think that's sufficient to address this query of what is the essence of PSIR, ideas and power. When ideas meet power, that's what PSIR is all about.
Okay, nice, sir. Sir, and further, if we see, look at the papers of PSIR coming in the last 2 to 3 years. Paper 2 had become somewhat dicey with respect to the aspirants. What is your take with respect to paper 2, which specifically deals with international relations and also the India's approach towards international relations?
So see, as far as paper 2 is concerned, it is dynamic without doubt. I think that could be one concern that people expect a sense of things being static in nature, but sadly that's not the case. You have to update yourself with information. And see, as far as any dynamic paper is concerned, you cannot predict questions. It's like, the weather, but all we can have is the umbrella. of theories. So if you have a command over, say, relativism or realism, whatever, if you have a hang of all these theories properly, then I think half the battle is won. It's all correlation. You just have to be update with information, and not even the most current ones, but largely contemporary ones, and that is more than enough, right? So there's this unnecessary fear in the mind that it's too dynamic. Of course, it's dynamic, but a healthy balance of theories as well as some dynamic content to it.
Okay, nice, sir. Thank you for it. Sir, and further, if we look at the syllabus and the PYQs of PSIR, it seems that it goes across a wide range from Plato to 1A to United Nations, India's seat, permanent seat, and all to 2B. So there is theory, contemporary relevance, and all. So how you deal with these things? Whether can we consider it as theoretical relevance or any contemporary relevance and all?
Think of it like this, that the first half of the entire paper is all ideas, and second half is all application. So first half we deal with understanding how things should be, and the second half is understanding how things are. And the moment you have this connection, I think half the battle is won.
So you are telling that we need to integrate 1A, 2B, 2B, 1A and all everything. Nice, sir. Sir, if I have to deep dive into our components of paper 1 and paper 2, many students feel intimidated looking at the political theories, ancient Greek thought, Plato, Aristotle, Machiavelli and all. Many people couldn't understand the abstractness in that subject. How will you be dealing with those type of things in the classes so that students will be attracted towards it, and how students should deal with them?
Initially, it might be slightly confusing for people because of a slight sense of abstractness in the thinker's life, but then we have to also understand that these thinkers were human beings. At some point of time, they were just toppers of their generations, maybe, right? People who overthought, overanalyzed, and then gave all these ideas. So if we can humanize them and have nice analogies in the class, I think that's one way to go. Think of them as humans from a different generation, just like us, nothing unique. So I think analogies work very well when we can have some correlation with what happens in your family, let's say in a relationship or with the family dynamics. And if we explain things through that process, it becomes easier and more fun as well, right? So yes, I think creating analogies and stories around those people and to something that can relate to their personal life, that's something that can hook them initially. And once the person is hooked, I think the battle is won. And also, see, I feel personally that too much of stress is put on thinkers. There are other topics as well from which a lot of questions come. And sadly, the focus has been it's all thinkers. That's not true. If you have a command over, say, topics like rights or equality or democracy, you can have a very good say and command over writing and picking up the right questions to answer.
Yes, sir.
The knack also in an optional paper is to pick up the right questions.
Yes, true.
So that's also there. I think there is this unnecessary fear that we have too many thinkers.
Sir, and since we had already touched this paper 2 part, once I have a question with respect to that also. Many aspirants feel paper 2 is very unpredictable because at least in the paper 1, we will be getting notes communism, Plato's communism, comparison, Machiavelli and all. But in paper 2, many feel unpredictable, and this year's 2025 paper 2, specifically 2B, had brought many nightmares to the aspirants in that scenario. Now, how should one get updated? Is there any specific approach an aspirant should follow so that you will be in line with this paper 2?
See, as far as paper 2 is concerned, the 2A, that is contemporary politics and theory, is largely once you have a strong command over it. Of course, we need to keep on adding information. What we also do as a part of our program is once the prelims are done, we do start a program which is of course meant for all the people who have taken our course and otherwise as well, over any kind of gaps that have been there in the last 1 year, 2 years of their preparation with respect to contemporary events. And if they attend that class, I think the gap gets filled. That's the idea on how we tackle it with respect to what we offer. And if there's somebody who wants to prepare on his own, I think as long as he is able to understand the ground realities of what is happening with respect to the newspaper and be thorough with reading, or just rather be updated with information. And then because once he has a strong command over the concepts, he can understand why India would suddenly be friends with China, or why would Bangladesh want to be friends with, say, Pakistan, right?
Yeah.
Again, all this comes from the fact that I have clearly understood the theory part of it.
Yeah.
And then reading the news on a regular basis also helps us. I think one thing that we have been missing nowadays is reading the newspaper on a daily basis for most aspirants. So when it comes to at least IR, they should read just glance the newspaper on a regular basis. And if they find something unique, some term that comes up suddenly, surprisingly, then I think maybe that term can be noted in the paper. So this is for people who are preparing on their own. Of course, preparing on your own is slightly more challenging because you have to collect on the information, comprehend it, understand it, digest it. So yes, but then it can be done. It's still feasible.
Sir, that means you meant to say that post prelims, whoever the students who had enrolled in your course, they'll be having some type of crash course,
Yes.
which will be like a rapid revision and also updated with all the contemporary happenings. Yeah, fine, sir. Good for it. And now, if I have to go towards answer writing part, the major problem with respect to PSIR, political science and international relations, is that in the last 3 to 4 years, average score of an aspirant who is writing mains with PSIR had reduced. That is a thing anyone should accept. There are some people who are scoring just 220, only 180, 250, and some even reach 300. Now, in your opinion, what is making the difference between a person who is scoring around 295, 300 to a person who is scoring just 240, 250, or in fact 220?
See, I think we have to understand that the expectation of the evaluator from a GS answer and from, let's say, an optional answer is vastly different.
Yes.
And I think sometimes students tend to forget this difference and they take the optional answer also in the same jest and the same sense of casualness how they approach a GS answer. I think that is one reason. Apart from it, following 4Cs, you start your answer, right? Establish a connect, and of course you critique and you conclude, right? So start with concepts. You simply then establish a connect, critique, and conclusion. The 4Cs that we say.
Yeah.
If you follow this pattern and have a nice touch of quotes,
Okay.
thinkers, not overdo it as well,
Yeah.
then I think it would be sufficient to score pretty well in this exam, right? So any score above 270, 280 is not unachievable. That's something which can be done very easily, right?
Okay.
So I think that's one important aspect.
Okay. So, sir, you are suggesting to follow this I plus 4C approach. Okay, nice, sir. Sir, and further, even you had also mentioned that we need to differentiate between PSIR answer and GS answer. So, how one should do that, sir, an aspirant?
See, as I said, let's say in a GS answer, you can simply say that India should build strong ties with its neighbors, which is a perfectly fine statement to make. But in your optional paper, we can maybe revamp it a bit by saying that India should follow a healthy mix of Nehruvian idealism and realist pragmatism
Yes.
with its neighbors. That's it. These just additional terms will make the answer have more depth and clearly distinguish your answer from a GS answer.
Okay.
And so these terms need to be used properly. And again, as I said, once the meaning is understood, you can freely use these terms and they are replaceable with the standard PSIR aspirant's answer in GS, which is clearly visible. In fact, I would say that you can also use these in your GS answers. Not too much, but a bit of it.
You are telling that we need to use subject specific keywords, right, jargons or anything to say. Yes, sir. And one more confusion or itself myth, you have to bust it now. It is generally said that we need to write PSIR answers only in paragraph format and GS answers in point-wise format. Is it true?
See, as far as this myth is concerned, of course, we prefer writing answers for GS in point format. That's true. But again, not every answer can be written in point format. Sometimes you might not know the points as well. Sometimes the answer expects a paragraph approach. So mix and match in GS. But then coming to PSIR, no, not really. We can always use diagrams, tables, especially when it comes to comparisons, etc. And we have seen people who have been using these tools have been getting great marks. So it is not that we need to use paragraphs. It's just that it becomes easier for an aspirant to correlate events, correlate concepts when they use paragraphs. So, and then rather, I would say healthy mix.
Okay.
60% paragraph, 40% points. But then in the points as well, you have to have small paragraph where you write a quote, underline the thinker, etc. tables to be used, flow charts. I mean, we can use all these. There is no concern at all. So this, I think, is a myth largely that we should avoid writing points in a PSIR paper or any optional paper for that matter.
Okay. So we have to be the question specific rather than fixing our mind.
And also a bit of balance.
Okay. Yeah, fine. Thank you, sir, for that. Sir, and further, one more dilemma with respect to PSIR aspirants while writing specifically 2B answers. Whether it is mandatory to quote the scholar views like C. Rajamohan, Suhasini Aidar, this Rajiv Bhargava, and if it is mandatory, how much percentage of an answer should it consist?
Quoting especially Indian authors and thinkers and scholars, be it C. Rajamohan or even somebody as old as Gandhiji. See, the point is, it gives your answer a home address, I would say.
Okay.
And it creates a healthy sense of correlation to what exactly is happening in the country.
Okay.
It sets the context right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason why we need to put in all these thinkers, but again, not to overdo it. In a passing reference, couple of thinkers, maybe some scholar, and that's it. Right? So not to overdo it also, because ultimately the answer's crux lies in the argument aspect. You have to argue your answer, your point.
Yes.
So the real substance should be seen through your point of view, and you use these thinkers to substantiate what you've already said. That should be sufficient.
Of course, many optionals face the problem of time crunch, but this is even more true with respect to PSIR as an optional. If you see, after this year's mains, many aspirants told that they were unable to complete the paper because this time it was a bit analytical. So, how would you suggest to manage this time in the paper?
See, for any GS paper or optional paper, speed is of grave importance. I think for a lot of students, the real concern is writing speed firstly, and just aim and shoot. Sometimes we tend to over-analyze concepts, and we keep on thinking on what to write or how much to quote in terms of, let's say, a thinker, etc. That is why I say that if we can have a healthy balance of tables, flowcharts, etc., sometimes in certain questions, if I know, let's say, that the idea can be represented in a simple flowchart, I will prefer using that because it saves time.
Okay.
And it can exhibit the information in a very limited time, especially not just words but time. So if we can manage this by incorporating these diagrams and flowcharts and tables, then it is sufficient, because I think we also have this misunderstanding that this is some language paper. It tests language skills. No, it does not. If you want to test your language skills, I think essay is a more apt paper that tests language skills. Here, the conceptual clarity is what is important. And if it can be conveyed in, let's say, a smaller word frame, I think it's more than sufficient. This goes on for every paper, including the GS, but more so for PSIR. And see, sometimes it might so happen that the papers tend to get more analytical, and students might get surprised, you get caught in that situation. So I would say it's not a standard thing. This issue is not of grave concern, which is not consistent largely. Sometimes it might so happen. So definitely, I mean, I would not deny it, but then it's a healthy mix of, sometimes an optional will become more analytical, and it requires, when it catches a student by a surprise, so he of course gets confused, and then the expectation comes crashing down, then the nervousness and the writing speed slows down. You tend to overthink what others might be doing, etc.
Yes.
A lot of these things also go in your mind when you write the answers. So I think that is why the expectation should be that I know the concepts, that's it, nothing beyond that.
Sir, now further, if you have to just juggle with these concepts in PSIR and all, we are seeing, it is said that world is in the state of flux now. We are seeing G2, group of two, multipolarity, this unilateralism, Trump's actions and all. Now, all these emerging type of things, how an aspirant can integrate in his or her answer.
Said earlier as well regarding this with respect to how you can use right terms, right jargons, and largely once you are up to date with information with respect to what is happening, the theory, relevant example, which is as current as possible, and as India-centric as possible, as you said about 2B. So as India-centric as possible, and that's sufficient. And if we can quote some scholars, especially in the India and the World paper, the 2B, I think that would be more than enough. So as I said, you have to be slightly more up to date with information compared to, let's say, any other option, because there are some options which are very static in nature.
Yes.
So of course PSIR will not compete with those options in terms of, once you are through, you're done for life. It needs evolution. So I think, yes, you have to be constantly up to date with information. But again, it also will help you in your GS papers somewhat, right? So
Yes.
it is not that you are putting in the effort in isolation completely.
Yeah.
It won't go waste.
I want to ask 2 or 3 questions with respect to preparation strategy for the students. Until now, you have been telling about this exam and all. So, with respect to preparation strategy, now if a person wants to start preparation with no background with PSIR, what would be the ideal timeline and their approach with respect to PSIR as a subject?
See, when it comes to somebody who has zero knowledge, in fact, as a faculty over the course of last 10 years, I have always said I would prefer someone with zero knowledge, because if you have some knowledge and if the concepts are not rightly placed,
Yeah.
I'll have to firstly wipe the slate clean.
Yes.
And that's double task. So it's better that you have zero knowledge on this and you enter the class. See, it might take anywhere from around 400 hours is a rough estimate of our course. So that is the course, which would be around 4 months, 4.5 months roughly. Beyond that, you would need around 1 solid month of revision.
Okay.
And 1 month of analyzing all the PYQs that we have solved in the class. So 6 months would be sufficient for this option to be through and through completely and make yourself exam ready.
Okay.
So again, I would not say this is the smallest option, not the largest one as well, somewhere in between.
Okay.
So it's a healthy balance of, not too quick, but not too large also.
Okay.
So 4 to 6 months is what we would expect any aspirant to be through and through with this subject.
Sir, then whether is it advisable for an engineering person who had completed his BTech or MBBS graduate and all to take this optional PSIR?
So a lot of people who are especially from the engineering background, they are choosing this option a lot. So I think this becomes a moot point in the sense that the idea, and even those who are from the humanities background, I think once they come to the class, it's all the same, frankly, because the way this topic or any subject is taught in the college is quite different from UPSC expectation.
Yeah.
So actually the problem should never be this in the first case.
Okay.
Because both come from quite different areas. One might have a slight, maybe say, a better conceptual clarity on certain things.
Okay.
But when it comes to approaching UPSC's way of answering questions, I think both are at zero, frankly.
Okay.
Right? So they have to be trained from scratch. And there is no undue advantage at all for anyone who is from the humanities background, or some kind of disadvantage for somebody from the, say, engineering background.
One more point of contention with respect to PSIR optional is about test series. What is the role of test series in PSIR as an optional?
Any optional test series is of key importance. Why I would say this is because it helps you channelize your preparation. It helps you, put your thoughts into paper, and that's what matters. You don't, whatever knowledge you have, if you cannot put this down on paper, it's of no use. So a test series, joining it at the right time, not too early as well. So I see a lot of places where after the first 2 classes we start giving questions. I think that's a very wrong approach. Let them build on some concepts first, because once they start on a wrong foot, it also demotivates the student a lot.
True.
So yes, that's one thing. Take some time, at least couple of modules are done. Once it's done, then we can slowly move on to writing answers, building on those answers. Short ones first, 150 words, the first and the fifth ones first, and then move on, building on that. Apart from it, joining a test series is also important.
Yes.
Why? Because it keeps you in check and command. Once you are done with your syllabus, see, once you're going through your coaching, of course, there's a teacher and you have mentors to help you out. But once you are done with your preparation and you are preparing in that self-study zone or situation, then comes the real role of test series.
Okay.
And that's where we are going to offer test series now, with respect to hand-holding people whose answer quality needs to be improved, etc. That also keeps you in check.
Okay.
With respect to your preparation, so that you don't just relax and calm down and stop revising. So I think yes, it's more important for those who have stopped their preparation, because for those who are still into it, of course we are offering them already in the class. So for them there is no problem.
As we mentioned earlier also, PSIR is not as small but as not too big. But anyway, we can call it as in middle bulky. Now in this scenario, how one should approach revision? Is there any specific strategy you would suggest for better revision?
Revision largely because people come from the GS perspective that when I revise, I have to read everything again and again. I think here revision does not just mean reading, it means refinement. Every time I pick up a topic, I go through it, I try to develop more links. I write more current examples, and I keep on changing or rather updating and improving my examples. That's how I keep on revising every time. So every time I have to refine my notes, keep on improving it. Because if I take the effort to improve my notes quality, if I take the effort to, let's say, any topic, say democracy for that matter, and then I see something happening in my country and I can correlate to it, that pushes me to also think on that topic from multiple perspectives. And once I start this habit of correlating things on my own, creating my own examples, live examples, I think that's true revision rather than just blanket mugging up, which might be great for GS, not so much for especially PSI, because it does require some kind of analysis.
Sir, and since we already started discussing with respect to test series revision and all, you might have seen many aspirants with PSIR optional since last 10 years in your experience and all. Now, what are the common mistakes being committed by an aspirant with PSIR optional with respect to their preparation or answer writing as such?
Studying topics in isolation is one mistake. That once I'm done with paper 1 or the first part of it, section A, and then section B should have no correlation at all. That's one huge mistake. Same goes for, of course, for paper 2, this cannot be the case. You have to correlate. But we do see in the answers that it seems like this person who wrote an answer for 2B has not read 2A at all. And it seems like even though he might use some terms, but then he or she, it seems that the answer is missing that link that should have been there with respect to theories. So that's something that we need to focus on. As I said, when you are studying, you keep on refining your notes by adding more examples, so current events. And secondly, I think you need to focus and constantly focus on going back to your theories, right? So both 1A and 2A, you need to focus on them. Whether you have been taught nicely or not is of no concern now. Once you have already learnt it, I think the focus should be on revising those more, and then the application part comes naturally.
Sir, and as you mentioned in your initial remarks also, the reason why many aspirants are taking PSIR is it's most of GS overlap and all. Now, how consider a person already had taken PSIR from you. Now, if he have to plan strategically to manage this overlap with GS1, GS2, GS4 or SA and all, what would you suggest for it?
See, firstly, I think once you are done with PSIR, GS2 is pretty much done and dusted.
Sure. Yes.
A large portion of it. In fact, barring some parts of social justice, which might require some data, everything else is covered. A lot also can be said for paper 1, especially Indian society and women's issues, globalization. You can have great data, you can have great thinkers, quotes, because we do tend to mug up quotes, right? Especially the standard ones, and that can be used freely in the answer. So paper 2 is done, paper 1, some part of it, of course. And of course, see, paper 4 is a combination of multiple optionals, philosophy, PSIR, sociology and PubAd. So of course, all these 4 contribute. PSI has its own place in paper 4, not just because of its thinkers and quotes, also because of ethics and governance, right? So though we should say that it's largely a PubAd based topic, but still PSI has its own contribution. So coming to that as well, quoting thinkers, quoting Rawls would be great. Affirmative action is great, substantive equality. So you know these terms, you have to place them in the right spot in the answer. It should be visible that this fellow has something else to offer, without also sounding like, oh, this is a PSIR optional aspirant. So not to sound too much, but placing these people in the right spots in a limited space, not overdoing it. It's like, we say that this is more like salt. Some of it is required. Too much of it causes hypertension. So I think in the right place, and same goes for essay as well. Putting in the quotes, not overdoing it, not make your answers sound more analytical, but a generalist answer with additional information.
Sir, then you are telling that quoting Rawls or Locke is not an issue, but we have to know how to quote them in a very selective manner.
As Rawls said, done.
Okay,
and
fine.
Mentioning it.
Yeah, distributive justice and all.
As Rawls said,
action.
And just verbatim quoting might not be required also in the GS paper.
Okay, fine, sir. Sir, and since one more doubt with respect to 1B, sir, since we didn't touch that, Indian government and politics. Generally, we see most of Indian government and politics will be having overlap with GS2. Say, for example, this year we had got a question with respect to parliamentary committees. Now, how we have to tackle those type of things? And specifically IGP, would you suggest any strategy to tackle 1B as a part, Indian government and politics?
Again, as I said, the way I teach polity in general is also quite exhaustive.
Okay.
And in fact, I tell all my students who are in the PSIR batch to attend the governance class also, because uh, some data that I might give them extra, of course, will be different from the polity batch.
Yes.
But then the way I teach is I follow the constitution as well.
Okay.
In the class itself, the bare acts are taught, and also with respect to the notes that I provide, they are largely on the same level. Maybe it's also because of this optional that I have that has given me this extra push to give more information in the polity paper as well. So my teaching of polity also is somewhat very close to how a PSIR paper 2 or paper 1B answer would be like. So for my students, the difference is not much actually.
Okay.
In fact, any question, say on NHRC or NCW as well,
Okay.
you would see that the answer quality of an aspirant who has taken a, again, it would sound like, I'm just praising myself. So that should not be the case. But
No, but of course, you're telling what you will be doing now.
the answer quality of a student with respect to even a GS paper is vastly better than what even some PSIR students would write in for 1B. When it comes to either contribution, etc. Because once you go through the paper and you crack the code of what is being asked, then it's all a cakewalk.
Sir, and further, since you are telling about your teaching style and all, just from your mouth, I want to know, how would be your approach with PSIR as an optional in your coaching classes, and what is the guarantee or promises you would be giving to an aspirant who will be joining your course?
See, my approach to teaching is very methodical, to be very brute here. I have largely been focusing on analyzing papers over the course of 10 years. And see, as I always say, it's very futile to predict questions.
Yes.
But my way of teaching is based on what is being asked, what is more relevant, how relevant are those topics in the current events, contemporary events. So my effort is put largely towards analyzing UPSC's questions, right? Rather than making somebody a PSIR expert. My target is to help them score as many marks as possible. That's what reflects in my notes as well as the way I teach and the topics I cover. And see, I think I keep on saying this every time in my PSIR classes as well as my other polity, governance and ethics classes as well, that see, I cannot predict questions. That's something that is, again, as I said, a wasteful exercise. But once you sit for my class and you revise properly in the exam, it will not happen that you ever see a question that somebody else can answer and you cannot answer. That's the only promise I make. That if there's a question that you can't answer, rest assured, nobody can answer it. It's difficult, right? So, of course, that's the only thing I can assure them.
There should be a boost for all the aspirants who are looking for right person to teach PSIR, because there is a lot of confusion in the market with respect to PSIR as a subject, because most of the coaching institutes with respect to PSIR do not give this guarantee and also the hand-holding support which you will be providing. Thank you for that, sir. And further, sir, since you had seen this UPSC since last 10 years as a teacher, and also you have been teaching PSIR since last 10 years, what is the trend you are expecting in the coming years with respect to PSIR? Whether will you consider it as evolving or it will be even more difficult in the coming years?
See, I don't see the rise in difficulty level. I see the beauty of slightly larger optional is that there's so much to ask and there's so many untouched areas. But yes, we have to also accept the fact that the papers are going to be slightly more analytical and application based. And that's what we see also, gradual shift from basic questions to analyzing the repercussions and the outcome. That's very much visible. So I'm sincerely hoping that we also move from the very typical boring explanation of iron law of oligarchy to its implementation, right? So I think we see that also happening in the recent times on not just writing rote theories in the answer, but also applying those theories. And that's where students can truly skill and outperform, because once you have a command and you, as I said, you refine yourself constantly by thinking and from multiple perspectives and creating your own examples in the current context, I think those people are going to flourish in this exam. See, UPSC overall has moved to being a thinking person's paper.
Sure.
It's no longer that rote learning paper.
Yes.
And that's visible every year. With every passing year, those number of questions keep on increasing which require analysis.
Yes.
And number of questions which require rote learning are decreasing every time. So I think that's where we are heading, and we have headed also.
Sir, and with respect to sources and all, many aspirants face problem here also. Some just refer to one faculty's notes in India, and some will be referring to many books like Andrew Hayward, Dopey Goba and all. What you would suggest, and whether your coaching notes would be sufficient for it?
See, I think this goes for every faculty, that every faculty has gone through a lot of effort to make their notes, and the faculty's task is to read those books actually, and that's what every faculty does, frankly.
Yes.
The same has happened to me as well. I don't like to reinvent the wheel, and I don't want students to do the same. That's why, even for let's say a newspaper or current affairs thing, I don't really like the idea of making notes out of newspaper, because that's a futile exercise. The same goes for PSIR as well. Of course, Belize and Haywood and Goba, and you can quote hundreds of books like this, which are great books, of course.
Yes.
But the point is, since all of them are covered largely in the topics, I would prefer that the notes are mucked up. More effort is put into writing answers, practicing more answers, and reading articles, which I normally would keep on posting on my Telegram that we have for our students. So read those articles, because those give a new perspective for the student, rather than the rote learning, the theory that the book will give, because that's been explained in the class already.
Yes.
So once we get to read more articles by different people, different authors, scholars from different perspectives, it opens up their mind to understanding how, the concept got related. The concept I saw in the class is being used by this fellow in writing an article. So that relationship has to be drawn, and once the aspirant understands it, I think he becomes more comfortable with the subject as well, including the terms.
Lastly, if you have a choice to bust one myth with respect to PSIR around the circles of UPSC aspirants, what would it be?
Frankly, I have not seen any myth with respect to PSIR, barring the only myth that we already discussed, that it is slightly bulkier compared to some of the popular options, which is actually true. There is no denying that. And it's very dynamic in nature. That's not entirely true. The focus has to be contemporary events. And if you can have a command over contemporary events, then, and that's a fun part of preparation, right?
Yes.
I mean, of course, preparation is also to achieve the desired outcome. But the fun part is that you also keep on updating yourself. You keep on improving yourself, and you keep on renovating your entire personality as well. And see, the beauty of PSIR is that it reflects in your persona in the interview as well. You come out as a more informed person. You're not shouting opinions, but you are shouting about, or rather you are explaining a perspective. So I think both these myths are not completely unjustified, but I think they're misplaced, because the benefits that this optional gives, I think this is one option that requires the least selling actually, because most aspirants take this option, I think, with the sole intention that it will help them in the exam while preparing, plus also post the exam.
Sir, and lastly, my question is that if you have to summarize this entire PSIR into 3 words, what would it be?
Ideas, impact, and innovation. But also, to extend this point, in this entire paper, you got to think like a philosopher, and you have to analyze, or rather should I say, you should question like a philosopher. You should be able to analyze like a diplomat, and you should be able to present yourself like a statesman. So it's all philosopher, diplomat, and statesman all in one. That's what I would say for this paper.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much for providing your time to us, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Finally, viewers, we had a great discussion with one of the expert of PSIR in India. I hope this session leads to a lot of enlightenment into your thoughts with respect to PSIR. And if you have any queries, any doubts with respect to PSIR as an optional, you can come anytime to Vishnu IAS Academy and meet our guest and also our lead faculty for PSIR. Thank you.